intentional walking that's been going on with Aaron Judge lately. They've intentionally walked him 12 times in his last 26 games. And a little bit of a twist last night in Chicago. The White Sox walked Juan Soto on purpose to get to Aaron Judge, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And on a 3-0 count, Aaron Judge smoked a home run and admitted after the game that he was a little pissed off, maybe had a little bit of the red ass there about somebody wanting a piece of him. He said he usually doesn't swing on 3-0, but he wanted to send a message, and he sent it. Aaron Judge, 300 homers in his career now, the fastest player to get to 300 home runs in his career. Only 955 games has it taken Aaron Judge to reach 300. The previous record held by somebody that you might not expect. The previous record held by not Babe Ruth, not Hank Aaron, none of those guys. Ralph Kiner had the previous record, and Aaron Judge got there in 132 fewer games. Now, Ron, as you know, we've been hearing a lot about Aaron Judge, intentional walks, Michael Kay, the Yankees announcer, saying that something needs to be done. This is really not what baseball's about. When we talked to Aaron Boone yesterday, I pitched my idea to him to solve this problem. Rob Manfred, somebody will get you my phone number, and we will settle this for you, my friend, because I do believe that I have the solution. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through the show. But Ronnie, what do you make of this? They actually walked the guy to pitch to Aaron Judge, which is flipping the script.
I mean, isn't that kind of like, when you talk about bulletin board material, but it was instant bulletin board material, where it's like, you never want to piss off Jordan or you never want to piss off Tiger. It's like, why you want to piss off the best player in baseball? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
The White Sox don't make a lot of sense in general. I think it's just White Sox going to White Sox is what that is. Hey, the team that's 25-90 or whatever they are like, hey, let's walk a dude to pitch to the best hitter in baseball. That seems like a good move for us. I think that's how you end up losing 125 games, is making those kinds of decisions.
Yeah, ultimate. It feels just like a troll job too, right? Like a troll job gone bad.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy. But look, it's been a long year in Chicago, and those kinds of decisions don't really make the year any easier for Chicago White Sox fans by any means. But quite interesting to see Aaron Judge, the guy who somebody wants to pick on for a change. And I think that it ticked him off. But intentional walks have been on my mind this season. And I really do think that baseball should address this. I'm a traditionalist, but we've seen so many rules changed in baseball over the course of the last several seasons that I don't care anymore. The pitcher's batting is gone. We don't have that pleasure anymore. They've made the bases bigger. We've got a clock now to speed up the game. They've banned the shift, which I was in favor of that. I always thought that things would balance themselves out naturally, that if hitters went the other way and exploited the shift, teams would have to stop shifting. But in this launch angle, exit velocity world in which we live, guys just continued to try to pull the ball despite the fact that everybody was over on that side of the field. And so baseball finally intervened and said, okay, you dumb motherfuckers, we're just gonna stop fielders from trying to stack the deck against you. But intentional walks, I mean, we even made it where, and I'm in favor of this as well, you can't just throw over to first base 1,000 times anymore. When I was a kid growing up, I saw games where they would go to first base sometimes when it was really a weapon in baseball the way that it was played in the 80s, the Rickey Henderson era. God knows how many times Rickey Henderson had to dive back to first base in his career. And think about how many bases that Rickey Henderson stole. He stole over 1,400 bases in his career. And think of how many of those stolen bases came on the heels of him having to dive back to first base multiple times. I saw a game years ago, and I think it may have been Joe Torre when he was managing the Braves. I want to say that this game took place in Montreal, and somebody went to first base. And again, this is my childhood memory, so I might be telling a tall tale, but I remember that they were going to first base a lot, and they started playing chicken noises on the stadium sound system. And I think Torrey came out and complained about that because the pitcher was going to first so frequently there that Joe got pissed off that they were clowning him there at Olympic Stadium in Montreal, or at least I believe that it was Olympic Stadium in Montreal. Now, let's go back for a minute to the unlucky teams here. The Vikings, I know Vikings fans, and they dodged a bullet yesterday when Jordan Addison, he was carted off. If you didn't hear, Jordan Addison, the fine rookie last season who had 70 receptions and 10 touchdown catches, got carted off, and there was fear that his injury might be as severe as McCarthy's. But it turns out, from what I'm gathering, that they've dodged one there with Addison. So so it's not all bad, Vikings fans. Take heart. Maybe Sam Darnold will be able to do something for you. But let's continue on in the vein of baseball. I'm so pleased today to bring in, for your pleasure, one of my favorite players ever, the great Dale Murphy joins us here on the Ricky Cobb Show this morning.
Hey, thanks
Murph,
for having me
how
on.
are you? It is good to see you.
Doing great. Really appreciate being on and look forward to it. I heard a lot of good things about the show, so thanks for having me on, Ricky.
Well, thank you. It means a lot. This is our 4th episode. And to have a man of your status and your caliber on the show is great. And, 8 years ago, you came on my podcast, and we had a great conversation. And I think I'll probably ask you a few of the same questions because you were so interesting on that podcast. But let me start you out here. Am I crazy, or is that memory I have of Joe Torre getting angry about that? That's a real thing that happened, right? You were there, I would imagine.
Well, if Joe Torre was managing the Braves, I was there. Now I'm not saying it didn't happen. Like just a second ago, you said I may ask you some of the same questions I asked you 8 years ago. That'd be fine because I don't remember anything from 8 years ago. So to try to remember what happened in Montreal,
All right.
I do remember the chicken calls. But if you threw over to first base, and then it did get kind of funny. After a while, they threw so many chickens up on the board, and it was Olympic Stadium. I don't know. There's a good chance that Joe got a little miffed at what was happening up on the scoreboard. But so trust me, I don't remember too much, but that makes the interview probably a little more fun because I'll make stuff up if I can't remember.
That's the kind of guest that I'm looking for. Yeah. If you don't remember, just tell a tall tale that sounds good, Dale, and we'll be great. I want to ask you about intentional walks. We've been hearing a lot. Aaron Judge has been getting a lot of free passes lately, and you led Major League Baseball in intentional walks in 1987. Yet you got 29 of them that year, and it was the most of anyone in either league. And you were intentionally walked 159 times in your career. I just looked that up this morning. What went through your mind when you got intentionally walked? I mean, I know that you were up there to hit. That's what every great hitter wants to do. But how did it feel when you would get up there and they would take the bat out of your hands?
Well, the first thing, an intentional walk is I guess I'm thinking it's a sign of respect. Although you're a little frustrated, you don't get to hit, but what they're telling you is that you're probably going to beat them. And if you look at the statistics of baseball, I don't run the numbers, but the basic statistic is that the odds are always in the pitcher's favor. But sometimes you're in a hot streak and things are really going well for you, and they're probably looking at those numbers too. It's like, what have you done? I think one of the most important things, any pitcher or hitter can do, but especially a pitcher as he goes through the lineup, and I'm sure they all do this, is what is this hitter done the last 6 games? He may be hitting 250, but he's hitting 450 the last 6 games. But so first thing you think of is a sign of respect. And the other thing, you think of in the long term is you got to build your lineup so that that is not always the best move, is to walk the guy and pitch to the next guy. So that's how lineups complement each other. You get guys that protect each other. But maybe I was in a real hot streak because you look back at my career, I had some slumps too. But if I was in a hot streak and they were walking me and pitching to Bob Horner or Chris Chambliss, that was a gamble. But it's also who's out there. Maybe it's a tough lefty for Chris Chambliss, and maybe it's somebody Bob didn't have too much success with. I think I understand the frustration as fans watching a lot of intentional walks, but these guys are doing some things that are really unusual. And I remember when Barry Bonds was going through one of his best years, and I asked Bobby Cox, I go, what are you guys doing? How you guys pitching me? He goes, it's like impossible right now. And you can remember all the intentional walks he got in his heyday. It's just, if you throw him a strike, he's going to either hit a home run or hit one off the wall somewhere. So I understand the strategy. It is a compliment to the hitter, but the main thing is you got to build your lineup so it hurts the other team if they do it too much. But is that your frustration? Is as a fan? Are you just saying, you don't like to see it? Is that kind of your frustration, or you're seeing it too often? You want to limit him? I heard you say earlier before I came on that you're open to all rules changes. I'm as traditionalist as they come, like you are. I'm open to anything, and I think everything should be thrown on the table because I think we were a little slow to change some rules. But what is your concern? Just too many of them? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I'll make my pitch to you, Murph, and you can tell me what you think. I put this out to Aaron Boone yesterday as well. I think, and Barry Bonds, that you're talking about, he was walked 120 times intentionally in 2004. That sounds like it's not possible, but he got 120 intentional walks, and heaven only knows how many times they pitched around him as well there.
Sorry, I dropped my phone. My phone dropped. Go ahead.
Oh, no. No worries. Oh, we still got you. Okay. Let me give you my pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Murph.
Well, did you say Barry Bonds I had about 129 or so in my career, and he had over 120 in 1 year?
You had 159 in your entire career, and you're number 43 on the all-time list. So that's well up the list. There's only 42 guys in baseball history who were intentionally walked more often than you. And yes, Barry Bonds had 120, almost as many as you had in your illustrious career in just that one season. So here's my proposed solution. This applies to each individual batter. So if you want to intentionally walk a guy, any player, you can do that and he takes his base. But the second time in that same game that you want to intentionally walk him, he gets 2 bases, and anybody who is on base moves up 2 bases, which basically means you wouldn't do it if someone was in scoring position. If you want to walk him a third time, you want to do it with the bases empty, and he's going to go to third. So I think each intentional walk should progressively penalize the pitching team more, so that maybe you don't, because Aaron Judge, I don't know if you know or not, Murph, but Aaron Judge recently got walked in the 2nd inning by the Toronto Blue Jays with nobody on base and 2 outs. And I think that if something like that were to become a conventional strategy in any way, it's just completely against the spirit of what baseball is about and what fans want to see. So how would you feel about a scale where the first time, okay, you get 1 intentional walk, but if you want to go back to the well, the guy's going to go to second base on the second one?
Well, like I said, I would consider it. Certainly, I'd consider it. Now, you're right. I did not know that it happened. I usually see how the Braves. Every day I see a Braves score. I check it out, but I did not hear that about Aaron Judge. No, the first I agree with you. I understand it. I think it is not in the spirit of the game, especially a walk in the 2nd inning with nobody on. And I think the main thing baseball is looking at, let's be honest, it's offense. There isn't a sport in the world where they're not trying to increase offense, right? We that's just the fact. They like people, we protect the quarterback. We got the 3-point play. Let me go back. In football, we protect the quarterback and the receivers, so we get more yards and more scoring. It's perceived as a more exciting game to you and me. We like low-scoring games. We like pitchers' duels. But if you look at the rules changes the last few years, which I have agreed with as well, it was time to make some changes. And so I guess what I'm a roundabout way saying, I would look at that. I'm not saying I'd agree with it right now. My point is, I want baseball to throw everything on the table. And if this is affecting the offense or affecting what we're trying to sell in Major League Baseball, obviously it is affecting one of our biggest stars, especially if you're walking him with nobody out and nobody on in early in the game. Does seem like it is not in the, well, let's put it this way. It's not in the spirit of creating more offense. I feel bad for pitchers because all rules changes have tried to increase offense. So that's just the way it goes. I would look at it. I'll give you that. I would look at it, and I would look at all possibilities of trying to limit the use of that. I'm not saying I'd come up with anything, but I think what baseball needs to do is take a serious look at everything. And I think they're doing that. I think they're throwing some things up there and seeing if they work. And, we know a few years ago they were experimenting with all kinds of things, and I felt bad for the guys in the minor leagues and the independent leagues where baseball was just trying stuff. Guys trying to make a career, guys trying to move up out of the independent league, and you got him pitching at 62 feet. Remember when they were trying that? These guys were guinea pigs.
Radical.
But anyway, getting back to the rules changes, I would consider that. I certainly would consider that.
All right, I'll accept a maybe. You're not telling me no. You're saying we definitely need to explore it further.
Absolutely.
Murph, all right, now I'm going to go back to one of the things that I talked to you about many years ago, and I want to thank you. You have been a follower of mine at Super 70 Sports on Twitter, now X, for a long time. And I actually remember the night that you followed me. I was at a Chicago White Sox game, and I got a little notification on my phone, because when it's a bigger account, sometimes the notification will pop up, and it said Dale Murphy followed you. And I remember thinking, okay, is this the Dale Murphy, or is this just Dale Murphy, the guy who sells insurance in Arkansas or something? And I checked it, and it was the Dale Murphy. And so that was one of my early indications that maybe that Twitter account was going somewhere, because you had noticed it. And one of the things that I asked you, and you were so kind to come on my podcast way back then when I was completely anonymous, really. And when you're trying to sort of build a name for yourself, and you're trying to build a following, and somebody like yourself gives you a chance, you really appreciate that, because I definitely gained some followers and viewers, I'm sure, because of that interview, because people are always going to be interested in what you have to say. One of the things that I wanted to ask you that was fun to talk to you about then is you started your career out as a catcher. And some people may forget that. And the Braves' best pitcher, the Braves' ace, when you came up to the major leagues, just so happened to be the great Phil Niekro, who, of course, threw the one pitch that is by far the most difficult for any catcher to contend with, that knuckleball of his. Murph, how many times did you get assigned the task of catching Phil Niekro, and what was it like for you as a young catcher to try to corral that thing?
Wow, I don't know how many games that I caught of Phil. Well, I should say how many games what's the quotation marks? How many games I tried to catch of Phil Niekro's. So, just let me give you my first experience. My first call up, September call up was 76. I started the year in Savannah. Got called up to Richmond for 2 or 3 weeks for the playoffs. And after that was over, Jack, I think I got to get this right. Yeah, Jack McKeon, which a lot of people wouldn't realize was our manager, called me into his office and says, "Hey, you're going up to Atlanta." And so I got called up, and I don't know if I must have had a game or two before I caught Phil in the last series of the year in Cincinnati. So this is 1976, and I'm, of course, a rookie. And I didn't have any experience. Well, I take that back. I might have had a little experience in spring training, because they always have a lot of catchers in spring training. They always need a bunch. And so, but very little game experience, very little exposure on the big stage. In fact, now that my memory's working a little bit better, I do remember I caught him in Dodger Stadium. I don't remember too much about that game, but although I do remember a pitch coming in about halfway, and a moth flew into my mask, and whoever was hitting hit it. And it probably would have been an easier opportunity for me to catch a knuckleball with a moth flying inside of my mask, because it was about a 50-50 shot, it felt like. But let me take you to the last series of the year. So I had a couple games under my belt. Well, Nuxie's got a no-hitter going into the ninth. And, I'm just against Big Red Machine, 1976. And we have a no-hitter going into the ninth. I think we had one out. Cesar Geronimo came up and hit a little bloop single into left field. So, Bruce Benedict was the best. Nuxie even said he was the best he ever had. Nuxie credited Benny with getting him to the Hall of Fame. I think Nuxie, I think I probably kept him from getting into the Hall of Fame sooner. I caught Nuxie's I think 200th win. We'd have to go back, whichever milestone win was in Pittsburgh. It might have been 250. I caught that game. So I think I caught about 90 games in the big leagues. So, I probably caught Nuxie 10. I don't even know what that would equate to, but he didn't miss a start. And, it was just one of those things. You just try to keep it in front of you. And Nuxie was really patient. He knew you were going to have some pass balls. I had 4 pass balls. The knuckleball in the Astrodome was really tough to catch, because if the wind is in Nuxie's face, the ball would move. If the wind was in his back, the ball didn't move that much. But when there was no atmosphere, no wind, and just a really still ballpark like a dome, like the Astrodome, it really darted all over the place. I had 4 pass balls. I think the record for the Braves might be 5. Maybe I had 5. So we're playing the Astros, and Willie Montanez is on first, playing first, and Bob Watson is on first, the runner, and a ball got away from me, and Willie Montanez really quickly yelled foul ball, and just kind of, and Bob wasn't a fast runner, so Bob kind of hesitated and went back to first. I went over and picked up the ball. I thought he'd be on second for my 5th pass ball. So, I think it's fair to say I still have nightmares. I wake up in a cold sweat, because the other thing is, when he got a guy on third, and Bruce Benedict will tell you this, when he got a guy on third, he couldn't give in to the hitter, and put his fastball in there, and then he'd throw it a little bit harder. It was even harder to catch. And you got a guy on third, ball gets away from you. So you're always, everybody says relax and just react. And it's hard to relax and think, I got to keep this ball. Just try to keep this ball in front of you. Try to keep your chest protector centered on the ball. And that's the way I did it. But if you want to have,
you got to use your body.
Yeah, you got to have Bruce Benedict on the show.
All right. Well, look, you mentioned Bob Horner earlier, and everybody, Murph, I would say for a lot of us, it's very possible that I saw more of your at-bats in my youth than any other player, right? I think that there's a lot of reasons why you're popular. You're popular because you're legitimately a good human being. You're popular because you're a 2-time MVP, Gold Glove winning, multi-dimensional talent. And you're also popular, I think, because at 5 minutes after the hour on WTBS, cable television brought the Braves to the living rooms of kids and adults all over this entire country. And I grew up in Kentucky, and the Cincinnati Reds were my local team, but I saw far more Atlanta Braves games because of cable television. And you and Bob Horner and that 1982 team that started 13-0, and of course, you and Horner were just double trouble. And whether the Braves were good or whether the Braves were struggling that year, opposing pitchers wanted no part of you and Horner. So I've got a little exchange for you that you and I had on Twitter a number of years back. And I don't know if we can get that graphic up now, but I had tweeted these Atlanta Braves placemats that I think they were from Pizza Hut. And each placemat would have 2 different players on it. And I did the one with you. I can't remember who was on yours. It was you and someone else. I can't remember which player it was. It was Horner and someone else. And yeah, there you go. It was you and Craig McMurtry, and it was Horner and Chris Chambliss. And I tweeted, am I wrong for being upset Pizza Hut couldn't give us Murph and Horner on the same placemat? To which you replied, I am too, so I made one. Can we get a look at this Dale Murphy Photoshop? Look at that. Look at that. 2017, Dale Murphy says, it bothers me too, and you corrected a Pizza Hut injustice there. That is a one-of-one Dale Murphy original. work of art. So you and Bob Horner, do you ever see Bob Horner anymore? Do you guys ever have a chance to talk or exchange pleasantries? Because, for a lot of us, your names will forever be joined in baseball history.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob and Chris are living in Dallas. Actually, Bob, I spent about 9 months here in Utah, and put all my time together in Atlanta. I'm there about 3 months out of the year. Bob and Chris vacation out here in Park City. We've had dinner with them, and my wife Nancy has actually been to Dallas and visited with Chris. I see Bob occasionally out on the road somewhere. So we're signing autographs or doing something with alumni with the Braves, and it was a real honor for me. I got to help gave a little induction speech for Bob Horner into the Georgia Hall of Fame. And amongst other things that I said in my intro of Bob before he was inducted was Bob and I were destined to play together as teammates. I was a year older than Bob, but I signed a letter of intent to play at Arizona State, and just got drafted by the Braves, and of course went on with my career in the minor leagues. Well, in 1978, 4 years after I signed, Braves signed the number one player in the draft, Bob Horner, and we ended up being teammates in Atlanta. I also shared in my intro that my numbers, my statistics, when Bob and I were together in the lineup, and my statistics, of course, I don't remember any numbers, but I think I was at least a 300 hitter. I hit more home runs. Everything was enhanced. As you can imagine, you watched a lot of our games. We were a good team. We protected. We were a good pair, Bob and I. And also when we got Chris Chambliss in that lineup, but it was kind of us three together. But we complemented each other really well in the lineup, and Bob protected me, and it's obvious by looking at my numbers when he was in the lineup. Bob was the best hitter I played with.
Murph, I want to, you guys were, heroes as far as I was concerned back in those days.
Thank you.
Still feel that way. It makes me feel good to know that you guys are still friends. I want to hit you with two quick questions here with the time that we have left. One is one of the most memorable games that I ever saw, and it's so strange to think of you just being like one of the absolute nicest guys. You were so kind to me years ago, and I tell people will say to me now, because I've interviewed a lot of athletes and celebrities, and they'll say, who are the nicest people? And I always mention you as being one of those. But you found yourself in the middle of a situation back in August of 1984 when the Atlanta Braves and the San Diego Padres had one of the biggest dust-ups, probably the biggest base brawl, if you will, that I've ever seen to this day. Things really escalated and got out of hand. It was wild. I think we've got a few still pictures that we can put up in a minute. Murph, what are your memories of the day that the Braves and the Padres went to war at Atlanta Fulton County Stadium?
Wow. Well, first of all, Ricky, thank you for all the kind words. And I just want to say how lucky I was to play on TBS, great announcers, and relive some of these memories. So, well, I guess the best way to say it was just another typical hot and humid Sunday afternoon game in Fulton County Stadium until after the first pitch, where Pasquale drilled Alan Wiggins in the middle of the back. And of course on social media, I have a number of people, one of the things I see every once in a while is best game I've ever been to as an 11-year-old. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Baseball has bench clearing brawls, but very seldom do we have about 5 of them throughout the course of a game, about every other inning. And so everything was kind of normal, and we didn't know what was going on. But Pasquale has good control. Padres were leading the division by quite a bit. We had a pretty good team in '84. And then out of the blue, he hits Alan Wiggins. And so usually there's some history, and we don't know, what started this one, but from the first pitch. And then we came in. I saw Kurt Bavacqua a few months ago, and he said, he said, so they came into the dugout and they're like, what are we going to do? And Dick Williams said, let's hit Jerry Royster. He's the first guy up next inning, or whoever was leading off. And I think it was Jerry. But Kurt Bavacqua went up to I've lost his name already, their manager, and said, why are we going to hit Jerry Royster? Let's hit Pasquale. And so anyway, we came to, the bottom of the first, nothing happened. Bottom of the second, nothing happened. We get to the bottom of the third, or whenever Pasquale hit, it's probably, bottom of the third. And then they started throwing at him. And so what the strategy for them was, well, we're going to hit him every time he comes up. So we had our first bench clearing ball, next time up, bench clearing brawl, next time up, here we go again. And then here we go again. And then here we go again. And I ran into Goose Gossage, and we were talking about it. Funny story. Funny story. He was ready to hit somebody. He came in the bottom of the eighth, I think it was, and he was ready to hit someone. And he got the ball after they threw it around from Greg Nettles, and Nettles put the ball in his glove and said, hey, word is from the dugout, it's over. Don't hit anybody. And Goose was furious because he wanted to hit somebody. And Goose goes, not for me. And Nettles goes, hey, it's over. Just let's forget it. It's done. And so he gets us out in the bottom of the eighth, and then Greg Nettles is the first pitcher, first hitter of the top of the ninth. And so I didn't know this till Bruce Benedict told me. He went out to Donnie Moore, who was our pitcher, and he said, hey, Donnie, Joe says it's over. Don't hit anybody. And Donnie said, well, it's not over for me. He said, go ahead and get behind the plate. And he hits Greg Nettles in the middle of the back. And I don't think Nettles wanted to go out there at first. You see him kind of hesitate, and then he runs out, and here we go again. So I remember being totally exhausted. I didn't know, whether to be embarrassed or what for kind of the display of what happened in that game. I was people say, where were you? I was in the middle trying to pull people off, trying to separate people. Those are the guys that usually get hurt, the guys trying to break it up. But it was bad. I mean, when you get fans on the field, let's really admit that it was a mess. I'm sure for some young boys, it was probably the best game they've ever seen. I'm not so sure.
It was the coolest thing ever. For this kid in Kentucky watching it on TBS, it was the coolest thing ever. Now, Murph, before I get you out of here, I have to talk about one of my pet causes that I like to promote on my feed. I don't have the biggest platform in the world. I don't reach the most people of anyone, but I do have a bit of a voice on social media. And I always want to remind people that Dale Murphy should be in the Hall of Fame. I think it's a miscarriage of justice that you are not in the Hall of Fame. I just tweeted that yesterday ahead of the interview today, and I tweet it I would say I tweet that probably about 2 or 3 times a year because I feel that you deserve it. 2-time back-to-back MVP, a Gold Glove player. Those of us who were there and saw you play know that you're a Hall of Fame player. Dale, how much do you think about it, and what would it mean to you if you finally do get that call that I and so many other of your fans believe that you so richly deserve?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ricky, and thank you for your support online. I do appreciate it very much. you and others are very supportive. Nancy and I are very grateful for that. And we're grateful to the Hall of Fame, also, as you know, but a lot of people don't realize they've changed the voting. I'll be eligible again this December, is my understanding. And they've changed that to help this committee. They've changed it. They've divided retired players into eras instead of just combining them all together. Lumping is the word I was looking for. Lumping them all together and trying to decide every 3 years it rotates into different eras, and my era is up. And there have been a few guys that have gone into the Hall of Fame as a result of that. So I'm eligible again in December. We'll see. I think I'll be on the ballot. I went up a vote last 3 years ago. And so all I can say is thank you for your support and many others. I do have support. I think being on these ballots is a great honor. And, I knew I wasn't going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I think there's a spot in there for me. And, Nance and I are just, you try not to think about it all the time. Obviously we don't, but about every 3 or 4 years when our era comes up, we start thinking about it, but I didn't start playing the game even having a thought that would be possible. I was just trying to make, the Atlanta Braves. I was so fortunate in so many ways. I'd love to be back on and talk to you about what Bobby Cox did for me. And so patient with me, what the Atlanta Braves organization did for me, how Joe Torre helped me. I mean, you just look back and, you just realize you didn't get there by yourself. What Nancy did for me as my wife and mother to the kids during my career. I mean, my teammates, a lot of fortunate things happened. I'm happy to be very thankful to be considered, and we'll see what happens this December, Ricky. But thank you very much.
You're most welcome, sir, and we'd love to have you back on the program again sometime. And I hope that when you do come back on, I'll be able to introduce you as deserved, Dale Murphy, Baseball Hall of Famer. Thank you so much, Murphy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ricky. Great to be on with you.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.